We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Tuesday, and we've got what is a pretty busy week. We've got the Republican primary debate coming up Wednesday. We've got 19 co-defendants in the Fani Willis indictment that need to turn themselves in. Donald Trump was in negotiating, well, Donald Trump's lawyers were in negotiating his surrender yesterday. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. We still need the other 18 to surrender. I think John Eastman negotiated out a deal where his bail is going to be $100,000. We've got Mark Meadows still trying to weasel his way out of it. Unfortunately, it's not going very well for him. So there's plenty to talk about this week. It's going to be a busy one. And we've got a few things that happened yesterday that we need to talk about it. But before we do that, we're going to get into the emails. And we've got a few emails at this point. First ones are the short little comments that Lisa makes. I told you that Lisa helps me out with tips on different news stories and that sort of thing that crop up. And it's very helpful, and I appreciate it, Lisa. First one is a suggestion. She says, what do you think about having several of us do a live on the night of the debate? That could be fun. Lisa. Yeah, I'm all for anything like that. I'll try anything, and any chance I get to talk to listeners, I'm happy to do it. You said live now. Now, Lisa and I have talked about this before, and I have a feeling she's talking about doing the live on YouTube, and that would be fine. I tried it one time, didn't work too well because nobody showed up, but nobody knew I was doing it. Lisa has a plan of letting people know, and hopefully we get more people there. I only did a live for a short time on YouTube. I'm not even sure how you pull other people into the live. I'd be happy to do it. I'll have to take a look at it and decide what I need to do to make that happen, but I'm all for it. I'm not good at putting these things together and keeping everybody's timing right because we're on different parts of the country, different time zones, and it's not always that easy. But I tell you what I will do. I will plan on doing a live, and at some point today, or possibly tomorrow in the morning on the podcast, I'll let you know what time I'm going to do it, and then we'll just kind of shoot from the hip and hope for the best. You know what I mean? I think we'll probably be best to do it after the debate so we can talk about what happened there. I know a lot of people are going to be watching it, and it might be better to do it after the debate. I just don't know what time the debate's going to start and how long it's going to go. But I guarantee you it's going to be a fucking shit show, and there'll be plenty to talk about, especially if Donald Trump does happen to show up. I know he said, I'm not showing up, but we know Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is a pathological liar, so he could show up. I know the idea of a big show like this or a big event, him not going is fucking with his head. As much as he might be afraid of Chris Christie or just being there in general and asked about all these criminal charges, it's still going to mess with him that he doesn't get the attention that he would if he were at this debate. So anyway, Lisa, I'm all for it. We can figure it out. Let's get it done. We don't have a lot of time. It's fucking Tuesday today. So we may just have to tentatively set it for Wednesday after the debate live on YouTube. We'll take it from there. All right, next up, Lisa says, Trump's attorney has managed to getting the judge to release him on $200,000 bond. That motherfucker is skating again. I can't tell you how angry I am. Lisa. Now, Lisa, what did I tell you about getting emotional? It does no good for you or me or anybody else. We can't get upset about things we can't control. And in terms of the $200,000 bond, does it really make much difference? They could have made it a $2 million bond. Would that stop him from bailing out of jail? No, it wouldn't. He would have found a way to do it. Even if he got a bail bondsman, that would mean he'd only have to come up with 10% of $2 million, which would be, what's that, 2 million would be 200,000 he'd have to come up with. For 200,000, it's 20,000. We're not going to keep him in jail with money. That's not what's going to do it. It's what the other restrictions that the judge made in this particular situation. And it's almost to the level of a gag order. So these restrictions are more valuable to us than this bail amount. So don't worry about the bail amount. Now, I've got the list of restrictions. I dropped the shit on the floor, so I got to pick it up. So this isn't the best for production purposes, but I'm going to bend over and pick this motherfucker up. There we go. Now, before you get upset about the bail, you got to understand the restrictions. And these are pretty stringent restrictions. This really paints Donald Trump into a corner, and I'll explain why. The number one restriction, the defendant shall not violate the laws of this state, meaning Georgia, the laws of any other state, the laws of the United States of America, or any other local laws. So what's that mean? It means he can't break any law, whether it's tied to the Georgia indictment or not. So if he's got some laws or rules that are going on in DC or New York and he breaks them by flapping his gums, he's still in violation of his release order. This pretty much hems him in from saying anything about anybody. Number two, the defendant shall appear in court as directed by the court. That's a given. You come when they tell you to come. Number three, the defendant shall perform no act to intimidate any person known to him or her to be a co-defendant or a witness in this case, or to otherwise obstruct the administration of justice. This shall include, but is not limited to, the following. The defendant shall make no direct or indirect threat of any nature against any co-defendant. The defendant shall make no direct or indirect threat of any nature against any witness, including but not limited to the individuals designated in the indictment as an unindicted co-conspirators, individual 1 through 30. Nobody on that list can he talk shit about. The defendant shall make no direct or indirect threat of any nature against any victim. The defendant shall make no direct or indirect threat of any nature against the community or to any property in the community. The above shall include, but is not limited to, the post on social media or repost made by another individual on social media. You remember he did that recently. Somebody posted some meme or some shit and he reposted it. He can't even fucking do that. Number four, the defendant shall not communicate in any way directly or indirectly about the facts of this case with any person known to him to be a co-defendant in this case, except through his or her counsel. Negotiation means that once arraigned, Trump will officially be out on bond. So, likelihood he's going to be arraigned the week of September 5th, which is coming up pretty quickly, a couple of weeks. Once that happens, he'll be out on bond, assuming he pays the $200,000. But now he's got to follow the rules, and you just listen to the rules. That pretty much covers every fucking base. He can't talk about anybody or anything anywhere in the country, whether it has to do with the Georgia case or not. So this hems him in pretty well. The real question is not if, but when he breaks this this order, what is the judge going to do? I honestly think that Judge Chutkin is going to get down to business on August 28th, 6 days from now. She will decide when the trial for the federal January 6th indictments will start. It's coming up in 6 days. Jack Smith wants January 2nd. Donald Trump's team wants April of 2026. Well, Donald Trump's got a few things working against him here. The judge told him, if you keep talking and you keep threatening and doing all the shit you're doing, the court case is going to come quicker. Them asking it to be in April of 2026 is absolutely ridiculous. It's a joke. The judge will be insulted and she will be pissed. So it will be much closer to what Jack is asking than what Donald Trump's team is asking. It may not be in January, but it could be February or March, and either one is fine. We're talking about a court case that might go 4 to 6 weeks. It'll be well within the time frame before the election. And I have a feeling what's going to happen in Georgia is going to be quick too. So he only had to pay $200,000 bond, but I'm going to tell you this. That motherfucker is hemmed in. And if we get a judge that isn't going to take shit, and I don't think Chutkin will, and I don't think this judge in Georgia will, Donald Trump could find himself in a world of hurt if he keeps flapping his gums. All right. Thank you, Lisa, by the way. The next email comes from Old Soul. You remember I read her email yesterday. It was an awesome email, well written. Good job, Old Soul. And the information was absolutely magnificent. I couldn't have said it better myself. And I mean that. I could not have said it better myself. In this email, she says, hey, Boomer, thanks for reading my email. I look forward to coming on the podcast after my house guests are back home and well. I live in Vegas and work from home, so I opened my home to host 3 seniors who lived in Hurricane Hillary's danger zone. You now have 3 new supporters of the podcast. Thank you for that. In the mornings, they want their breakfast, coffee, and beds before they swear at the TV. This morning, I heard "No shit, Sherlock" when Joe Scarborough on MSNBC suggested T-Rump supporters are in a cult. After that, they listened to the podcast, and I heard "Damn right, Boomer" being yelled a few times. We placed bets on over-under of T-Rump's big weigh-in at the jail this week. I think that's one of the things that is maybe mostly fucking with Donald Trump's head, because this is going to be unlike what he had in federal surrendering situations. They're going to check his height and his weight. Now, Donald Trump is a little sensitive about his weight, and we know how he loves to talk shit about other people and how fat they are. Well, Donald Trump just happens to be a big old tub of goo, but apparently he doesn't see it when he looks in a mirror. He's given us all kind. Remember when that Dr. Ronnie idiot checked him out and he said he was 6'4" and 232 and he's in the prime of health? Yeah, right, motherfucker. He is not. He's a tub of goo. So now he's going to have to be weighed in, and presumably they're going to publish that information with everything else. Now, Old Soul says we place bets on the over-under of Trump's big weigh-in at the jail this week. Over or under 275 pounds. What are your predictions? Are you over or under the 275? I'm over +3. We're looking forward to your prediction. Well, I'll tell you this. I'll guarantee you he's over 275. There's just no way he's under 275. So I'll be looking forward to that too. She says, tomorrow I'm going to read the predictions from the comments section, so I hope everyone chimes in. Oh, they also have a theory. They think Trump's pre-recorded the Tucker interview so he can turn himself into Georgia during the debate. Well, I believe I know for a fact that he has already recorded the Tucker Carlson interview, which will run during the debate, which actually frees him up to do whatever he wants. Yeah, he could turn himself in. I'm not sure that will happen, though. There's a lot of logistics that have to be figured out with Donald Trump. When he turns himself in, he's going to have to get security set up. He's already said that he's going to turn himself in on Thursday. I'd be surprised if they change that. I could be wrong about that, but he says Thursday. But I'm thinking Wednesday, he could very well end up showing up at the debate, maybe even just trying to be intimidating by sitting in the audience, or maybe trying to show up. Yeah, I know he's afraid of Chris Christie. There's no question about that. He's afraid of talking about all the charges he has against him. But this really fucks with Donald Trump's head. Donald Trump is a narcissist. He loves being the center of attention. He loves being the star of the show. He loves getting ratings. And here's the deal. He's going to have a hard time sitting on the bench, watch these people tear his ass apart without being able to respond in kind. I do think that's going to fuck with his head. I don't think he's a very disciplined guy, so I think he could very well show up at the debate. Now, like I say, I could be wrong. It's really hard to tell because he's in a no-win situation here. If he shows up, he's probably going to be embarrassed. If he doesn't show up, he'll be embarrassed and he'll hate himself for not grabbing the limelight when he had the opportunity. Now, Old Soul says, can you give a shout out to Alex, Joe, and Mary? They'll like that. Thanks for all you do, Boomer. Absolutely. Alex, Joe, Mary, thank you for joining us on the podcast today or yesterday. I hope you'll continue listening even when you go back to California. We try to do this every night. You don't have to listen every night, but when you need to hear something, you need to be updated, you need a little pep talk, as it were, I'm here. So you can always check YouTube, or you can always check the podcast, the audio podcast. And as I tell people, it's real easy to find. All you have to do is go to rationalboomer.com, and there'll be all kinds of links to Facebook, to TikTok, to Instagram, to YouTube, to the audio podcast. There are several options for several platforms to get the audio podcast. So if you want to check in, it's easy as heck. We hope you do. And thank you very much, Alex, Joe, and Mary. We're happy to have you on board. And as a fellow older folk, I'm 63, I will just say two words to you that I think we can all agree on. Fuck Trump. Now, if that hurts your sensibilities, you're on the wrong show, because I fucking swear here. But I think you guys know what I'm talking about, and I think you and I are on the same mental wavelength. All right, the next one comes from Maddie. She is from Michigan. She says, I'm not sure if you saw on TikTok a little kid with brittle bone disease was being attacked by some evil people because they thought it would be fun to bully him and try to get his account banned. I looked through his videos and he loves Legos and just wants to have some sort of community and friendship because he can't go outside and play with kids his age because he could get severely hurt. Now, thankfully, many large creators stepped in to give him lots of love and support, and he went from about 2,000 followers to well over 500,000 followers. I remember when I was in school, no matter who you were or how tough you were, there were certain people who were totally off limits. And if anyone would pick on them, everyone would make sure that they really regretted their actions. It breaks my heart to see people bullying others in any form, but especially when it's directed at someone who can't protect themselves. It does fill my heart with joy and hope for this world, though, when I saw how many people came out to show support and love. Sorry about that. Old people get coughs. Anyway, she says, it does fill my heart with joy and hope for this world, though, when I saw how many people came out to support and love him. Oh, wow. Okay. You drink water, it goes down the wrong tube, everything gets fucked up. You're old. If this was audio, I'd just cut this shit out, but I can't because it's fucking video. So anyway, I will cut it out of the audio, though. I promise you that. Anyway, it does fill my heart with joy and hope for this world, though, when I saw how many people came out to show support and love. We need to go hard against bullies in real life, and especially on the internet. Thank you, Maddie. Maddie, you're absolutely right. I cannot stand bullies. I've been dead set against bullies all my life. I had a father who was a bully, and when I came to a certain age, when I didn't have to accept being bullied, I did not. And I've always had an annoyance with anybody bullying anybody. If I was in a situation and I saw somebody bullying somebody, I would step in and not get in a fight because I was older at the time, but I would embarrass the shit out of the bully and they would end up slinking away because they felt stupid. I remember when I was young, I think it was middle school, junior high school. I had a friend of mine and we were both athletes. We were bigger guys in school, and we were thought to be tough. Whether we were or not, I don't know. It didn't matter as long as people thought we were. And we saw some kids getting bullied from time to time, and we would walk up and grab the bullies by the collar and explain why this was a bad idea, and that usually worked. Now, regarding this kid, I saw him too, and if you've been on TikTok, you no doubt have seen him. He's an adorable kid, very precocious, very intelligent kid, and when you look at the video, it sounds like, he doesn't get out much because, as Maddie said, he has brittle bone disease, and it's dangerous for him to do that. And he found a lot of friends in the community on the internet, and some people took offense to it, like dumb fucks will, and they started to try to get him banned. Then the big creators took over, and I was going to do it too, but I knew that there were a lot bigger creators that were going to take care of this, and this kid wasn't going to have a problem once they got on board. I mean, he had creators with 500,000, 1 million, 2 million helping him out. They didn't need my help. But anyway, and they brought this kid some joy and kind of saved his account. I don't know how close he was to getting banned. It may not have been that close, but he's young and he was scared, and I get that. But then, I don't know if you've noticed, since all the big creators came to him, now there's a new group of people out there that are saying it's all fake. His mom set this up. This is just an act. He didn't really do it. He's not really sick. And I kind of half expected that. That's a natural reaction from bullies who don't think they're bullies. But this kid came on the video and he showed one of his legs and showed how the scars on his legs, where he had multiple surgeries to put rods in his legs and his arms and all of that stuff. This kid is legit. I kind of understand how people question it, because this kid is extremely bright, very precocious, and it almost seems like an act, because when you see a little kid behaving out of character from most normal kids, normal, what I mean mentally and intellectually, kids of that age, they aren't usually that mature and that advanced and that articulate. So immediately they thought there was some scam going on here. And to be honest with you, when I first saw it, I immediately got the emotional part of it and said, I'm going to help this kid out. And then I started thinking, there have been times on TikTok where somebody's come out and wanted help, and they had this sob story and looking for help. And I didn't do it, but a lot of other people did, and then later find out it was a scam. Now, never at any time did I think this kid was a scam, but I thought I'd lay back and see what happens. Not because I question it, but because I don't even know what I can do. I'm not that big a creator where I could make a huge difference when somebody with 1 million followers could take care of it all themselves. But I watched this kid closely in these videos, and there's nothing about it that tells me it's not legitimate. I don't know what would be the gain if it wasn't legitimate. Like Maddie said, he started out with 2,000 followers. That's not a lot of followers if he's trying to scam somebody. He couldn't have known that all these creators would have jumped on board and get him up over 500,000 followers. I think this kid genuinely is looking for friends and a community. He found it here on the internet. And why in the world would anybody want to take that away from him? I mean, who's he hurting? He's hurting nobody. He's doing his best with what he's got to work with. And I respect that out of the kid for being that motivated and that intelligent to be able to pull that off. So yeah, Maddie, I did see it. And this kid is doing better now. The only thing that I found weird about this, and it and I don't mean to question his legitimacy when I say this, but mom and dad must have a few bucks. So that would tell me that they aren't having to scam anything here. And the reason I say that is because every time I see a video, he's got a new Lego set. And that's cool. He loves Lego. Great thing for a kid like him. But these Lego sets, I bought Lego sets before for my nieces and nephews and such, my step's grandson. These are huge fucking Lego sets, and they got to be $200-300 a piece. And it's like every other day he's got a new one. Well, bully for him. I'm glad he did. But that may be why people are questioning what's going on here. And then one time I saw him in a car and he said he was going to a wedding in Europe or something like that. I'm going, holy fuck, this kid's doing pretty well, or his folks are doing pretty well. And I think that's part of the reason why people started questioning it, because it didn't seem like this kid was struggling financially, meaning his family. But that doesn't change anything about his physical situation and what he can and can't do. I'm a firm believer in live and let live. And this kid should have every right to build a community and have followers or peers. Everybody who sees this kid loves this kid, and I do too. You can't help but love the kid. He's cute, he's smart, and you kind of feel for him given his circumstances. Now, that said, what I want to also suggest is there are a lot of kids out there that are struggling. And as much as he has some bad luck in terms of his health, there are kids that are even worse off than he is, that may be getting bullied or just maybe getting ignored. Kids that may be sick, kids that may live in poverty, kids that may be hungry, kids that are being abused. I'm all for protecting this kid and helping this kid, but we should all be more cognizant of what's going on out there and be willing to help others as well, not just because they've got a popular TikTok channel. That's my quandary here. This kid, he deserves all the help he gets, and I love the kid. You can't help but love him when you watch it. But there's so many fucking kids that, I hate to say this, but are worse off than this kid in some ways. We have to be more cognizant of young people in this country. Now that I have a granddaughter and a grandson, I think about it even more. I'm fortunate that my grandkids are doing fine and they don't have the problems, whether it be physically or financially, that a lot of kids have. And I'm thankful for that. And if there was ever an issue with my grandkids having problems along those lines, you can bet that grandma and grandpa would be there to straighten that shit out quick, fast, and in a hurry. But we do have a lot of kids in this country. And the reason I know this is because my wife, as I've told you, was a teacher. And as a teacher, I would hear the stories of these kids when they come home, when they come to class, and she hears about what's going on at home. And it's absolutely tragic with some of these kids not having clothes, kids not having food, kids having virtually nothing, having parents that probably have no business being parents. It's very tragic what's going on in this country, and it's something we should take note of and something we should try to rectify in spite of the Republicans, because these young kids certainly are our future. We're going to have to depend on them to do the things necessary to run this country. And if they don't have the proper food, the proper clothes, they're bullied or they are bullies. Because I'll be honest with you, when you're talking about little kids, those bullies typically need as much help as the ones they're bullying. There's a reason they're bullies. And I don't know. It just got me thinking about a lot of things. This kid on TikTok, by all means, help him. He's lucky he's gotten a lot of help, but there's a lot of kids we got to help too. We got to figure that out. I'm afraid we can't figure that out until after the Republicans are out. So if you want to help kids, vote Republicans out. That's the only way we're going to be able, as a country, to help our kids. All right. Now, as Lisa pointed out, Donald Trump's bond has been set at $200,000 in the Georgia case. The bond agreement outlined in a document signed by Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis and Trump's defense attorney also bars Trump from intimidating co-defendants, witnesses, or victims in the case, including on social media, as I pointed out. Now, the order says Trump cannot make any direct or indirect threat of any nature against witnesses or co-defendants. It explicitly includes post on social media or repost, as I mentioned. So Donald Trump, in that list of things that I gave to you, is very specific, and it seems to cover all bases. And that's good news. It's not technically a gag order, but for Donald Trump, it's for all intents and purposes a gag order. Now, those restrictions are one thing. It's a matter of how they're enforced and if they will be enforced. And I have a feeling this judge in Georgia is going to be a little more stringent than some of the things we've seen before. So that's all good news. Now, the order sets Trump's bond for racketeering, influenced, and corrupt organizations, or RICO. That charge is $80,000 bail. And it adds $10,000 for each of the 12 other counts he's facing. Willis has set a deadline for noon Friday for Trump and his 18 co-defendants to turn themselves in at the Fulton County Jail to be booked. Now, in this negotiation, they don't, and we don't know what the outcome was, but they are probably deciding or trying to negotiate not having a mugshot. Donald Trump, I can just imagine his lawyers walked in when they were going to negotiate this surrender deal. They were probably a little cocky, a little bit of a swagger, and they said, you know, our client is a former president, and our client is currently running for president, so certainly he should be treated special. Well, we know that the Fulton County sheriff has said that's not going to happen. He's going to be treated like everybody else. So there's an excellent chance he's going to get a mugshot. Now, Donald Trump doesn't want the mugshot, mainly because he's afraid it's going to make him look bad. Yeah, that's the one thing that's going to make you look bad, Donnie. But Donnie's not thinking about something else, something far more potentially damaging than that mugshot. And that happens to be the fact that in Georgia, you can have cameras in the county jail and in the county courthouse. So when he's surrendering, there's going to be a lot of pictures and video of Donald Trump. And no question, he's going to look bad. He wants everything working his way. But the fact of the matter is, nothing is going to work his way. He's going to have to deal with what he's going to have to deal with. Let's face it, this isn't a party he's going to. He's getting fucking arrested, and he's going to be treated like every other arrestee. So you're going to have the pictures when he turns himself in, presumably on Thursday, but you're also going to see video when he's in his arraignment sometime in the week of September 5th, and then when he's on trial, he'll be on video too. So we'll get to see all of what happens to Donald Trump, the facial expressions and all the things he goes through while people are talking shit about him all day, every day. So, Donnie, you could worry about the mugshot, but I think that is probably the least of your problems at this point. Now, of course, Trump has denied any wrongdoing. He has been railing against the case since before he was indicted and singled out Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, a Republican who rebuffed his efforts to overturn the election. But he gave this governor, Brian Kemp, shit in social media post as recently as Monday. Yesterday. Willis has proposed that arraignments for the defendants happen the week of September 5th and that the case go to trial in March. Bond was also set Monday for 3 lawyers who were indicted with Trump. For each of them, the bond for the RICO charge was set at $20,000 with varying amounts for the other charges they faced. John Eastman and Kenneth Chesebro each had a bond set at $100,000, while Ray Smith's bond is $50,000. So there's a lot of people going to have to pay a lot of money to stay out of jail. At some point, the surrenders have to take place between now and noon on Friday. We're hearing Donald Trump is on Thursday. We'll wait to see if that happens. But that's a lot of people surrendering in 4 days, 3.5 days. So we're going to see how this plays out. As Lisa said, I think it was Lisa who said that he may turn himself in on Wednesday during the debate. And I know there was some speculation about that to try to take away the attention from the debate. And that makes sense, actually. That makes a lot of sense. But since he said he's coming in Thursday, and because, as I said, there's a lot of security issues with bringing him in, I doubt that he'd come in by surprise. I think he's more likely to turn himself in on Thursday after having attended the debate at some point. I think it's more likely he'll attend the debate than it will be that he'll go early with the surrender. But again, it's all speculation. I don't know anything any more than anybody else. I'm just trying to look at the facts and see what he might do under given circumstances. Nonetheless, Donald Trump has to surrender by Friday at noon. And then September 5th, he will be arraigned, and it's not going to be good. And between all of that, on August 28th, of course, Judge Chutkan in the Washington, D.C. case is going to tell Donald Trump when his trial starts. And I have a feeling he ain't going to be happy about that. That's not going to be something that pleases him in the least. All right, we are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Well, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, of course, we know that August 28th is going to be the day when Judge Chutkan from the Washington, D.C. trial, the January 6th trial, is going to decide when Donald Trump's case or trial will start. Jack Smith suggested January 2nd, 2024. And of course, Donald Trump and his legal team suggested April of 2026, which is absolutely ridiculous. This will do nothing but piss off Judge Chutkan. It won't fare well for Donald Trump in this situation. And Special Counsel Jack Smith responded to Donald Trump's request for a 2026 trial date by accusing him of being overly dramatic about the burden that preparing for the case presents. Trump's lawyers had complained about the federal case, accusing him of attempting to overturn the 2020 election result, claiming that it took the Justice Department 2 years to investigate the case, so it will take them 2 years to craft their defense. And we've talked about this before. They talk about 2 years, but the fact of the matter is Jack Smith didn't come on this case until November, 10 months ago, 11 months ago. And the fact of the matter is, before that, we know that Merrick Garland didn't do jack shit on this case. So it's not been 2 years or 2.5 years. It's been 9 or 10 months. Now, Jack Smith and his prosecutors called the whole concept absurd. He said, in service of a proposed trial date in 2026, that would deny the public its right to a speedy trial. That's something you need to know. The right to a speedy trial is not just for the defendant, it's for the people as well. The defendant cites inopposite statistics in cases, overstates the amount of new and non-duplicative discovery, and exaggerates the challenge of reviewing it effectively. What Jack Smith is basically saying, yeah, it's a lot of stuff, but you're making it a bigger deal than it needs to be. You're exaggerating this to make your point. And that's not a big surprise when we're talking about Trump-a-fucks. They do this all the time. Donald Trump does it all the time. He exaggerates to try to make his point, whether or not it's true. And that's what Jack Smith is saying about these lawyers. One of Trump's claims is a statistic that shows how long trials take, but the special counsel explained that the numbers they're citing show the timeline from the charges all the way through the completion of the sentence. It has nothing to do with the time of the actual trial procedures. The stats that Trump is citing also come from the trials during the COVID-19 crisis. Yeah, the one that he fucking caused. Now, the defendant listed January 6 cases also omit important details and context, the prosecutor's filing says. He fails to mention, for instance, that in one case he cites disposition was delayed because of, among other reasons, litigation over pretrial detention, a superseding indictment, and plea negotiations. All of the defendant's other cited cases include multiple co-defendants, as many as 17. The court could set at these in opposite comparisons aside when weighting the individual factors here under the Speedy Trial Act. As for the burden of discovery for Trump, the special counsel explained that so much of the information that they had to fight to obtain, Trump already had access to. Approximately 3 million pages of discovery, 25% of the first production, come from the entities associated with the defendant. The filing says hundreds of thousands of other pages came from the National Archives, meaning that the defendant or his representatives reviewed them before the government received them, or are publicly available, including defendant's tweets, through social posts, campaign statements, and court papers involving challenges to the 2020 election by the defendant or his allies. Jack Smith goes on to say he fails to mention, for instance, that in one case he cites the reasons for doing this have to do with all the legal entanglements he has. Well, that's just not true. And Jack Smith points that out. Jack Smith was very direct in what he was saying to Donald Trump and his legal team and the judge. There's no glad handing here. There's no politeness here. That's what I like about Jack. He's just saying, here are the facts, fucking deal with it. And Donald Trump will have to deal with it. His lawyers will have to deal with it, and the judge will decide it. One of the most important things that I think we can put in our back pocket when it comes to this situation with Jack Smith and Donald Trump's lawyers, Jack Smith is a far better lawyer than Donald Trump's lawyers. Donald Trump had to scrape the bottom of the barrel. And he doesn't have the best lawyers. And that's shown every day when they make these motions that are absolutely ridiculous. Like the whole point of suggesting the trial start in 2026. No lawyer worth his salt or her salt would ever do that. It's going to make them look stupid. It's going to piss off the judge, and it isn't going to work well. And I would say these lawyers probably knew that. It just goes back to what I've always said about Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't listen to anybody, and he certainly doesn't listen to lawyers. He tells the lawyers what they should say, even though the lawyers know better than that. And for whatever reason, the lawyers bend over for Donald Trump and do whatever he says, no matter how embarrassing it might be for them. So anyway, August 28th, we'll know when the start date is for the January 6th federal trial. And as I say, Donald Trump will not be happy with the outcome. He'll cry and scream and defund the FBI and impeach Joe Biden, but none of that will matter. None of that will matter. We're in the middle of a trial at that point. It's all in the hands of the judge. And frankly, with Judge Chutkan, we couldn't be in better hands. So I'm looking forward to all of that. Now, once Donald Trump heard about the bail and all this stuff, he was promptly derided by social media on X or Twitter, the platform formerly known as Twitter, over the new terms of his bail in the Georgia election case and his ability to abide by them. Now, Trump did agree to the $200,000 bond. He didn't want to, but he had no choice. And there are a number of requirements, as I said before. Georgia State Professor Eric Siegel said on Twitter, "Set your watches, folks, because there's little chance he'll comply." Couldn't say it better myself. It's not a matter of if he violates the release order. It's a matter of when. Another Georgia State professor, Anthony Michael Christ, agreed, saying, "Barring a real come-to-Jesus moment, the only way Trump doesn't violate his Fulton County consent bond conditions is if his lawyers confiscate his phone. And that ain't going to happen." Trump's bail for his arrest this week in Atlanta set for $200,000, as I said. Former NBC Universal executive Mike Singleton, as a part of his release, it was stipulated Trump shall perform no act to intimidate any person known to him or to be a co-defendant or witness. We'll see how long that lasts. And again, it's true. Now, political commentator Dean Obadiah, notice how RICO is the highest bail requirement, said political commentator Dean Obadiah, referencing the top charge of racketeering in the case. In reality, given Trump is charged with 91 felonies, he should be held without bail. And that's true. And I think most people in most situations would be held without bail. Now, other commenters observed that other co-defendants in the case could have issues even beyond complying with the terms. Note, Trump court jester and alleged attorney John Eastman, facing 9 criminal counts in Georgia, has bail bond set at $100,000, said the author and consultant Tommy Ahonen. This Mass says Giuliani, who faces 13 counts, will have bail set at $140,000. Rudy may not be able to afford it. Now, legal analyst Lisa Rubin pointed out that there are actually some ambiguities in the terms that need to be ironed out. Who counts as a victim, she said, especially given that the wording is not limited to victim in this case, asked Rubin. And what about the community? Who is a member of the community against which Trump may not make direct or indirect threats? Bond order was negotiated and agreed upon by both sides. These are questions I would have expected his counsel to ask and insist either on more clarity or more precise language. And you're right. If you look at what was written after reading that list of restriction, it was fairly ambiguous. And I don't know, maybe they did that on purpose so that there was no finding of loopholes, and that if he did anything, they could jump his shit without having Donald Trump and his lawyers find some loopholes. Maybe it was intentional, maybe it wasn't, but I have a feeling there will be some clarifications about that at some point. Now, the interesting thing about Donald Trump, the thing we talk about a lot, is where are the witnesses and the evidence coming from against Donald Trump and all the other people that are being prosecuted? The crazy thing is, it's all coming from inside the House. It's all coming from Republicans. Glenn Kirshner said, Donald Trump will be convicted by a chorus of Republican voices, including Mark Meadows and Mike Pence, when he heads to court on Monday. Now, Kirshner's comments came during a panel discussion with Nicole Wallace about former Trump allies turning against the former president and cooperating with authorities. That's almost unprecedented, how many people are flipping on Donald Trump. Now, Kirshner went on to say, first of all, I'm so impressed when I hear evidence of Mark Meadows saying things that pretty dramatically undercut Donald Trump's claims. regarding the classified documents, like he telepathically declassified them with his mind, like they were automatically declassified when he took the documents from the White House. When you have his own chief of staff, a fellow Republican, Mark Meadows, completely eviscerate those claims, you also have Mike Pence in his own mealy-mouthed way going along way to also undercut those claims. You know, once these cases are at trial, Nicole, Donald Trump will be convicted by a chorus of Republican voices. I mean, I think back to the January 6th House Select Committee. I think there was nary a Democrat that we saw testify. So once these cases are in trial proper, I do maintain it's going to be kind of like shooting fish in a barrel. Donald Trump will not have a compelling defense. And this is, you know, pretty much what I've said. He's in a world of trouble. He's got his own people from inside the House testifying against him, and he's really not going to have much of a defense. Now, all co-defendants have been ordered to surrender to authorities in the Willis, Georgia situation by August 25th. And they have the very same circumstances there, whether it be the Washington, D.C. case or whether it be the Georgia case. It's all Republicans that are testifying against Donald Trump. Very few, if any, Democrats. So that's going to be the hard thing for not only Donald Trump to defend himself against, but from the rest of the Republicans to try to divert this. What are we supposed to believe, that all Republicans are liars now? Well, we know that to be the case, but in this situation, they're coming for the Republicans. They're coming for Donald Trump and all his little Trump-la-fucks. Now, talk about Trump-la-fucks. The hard-right House Freedom Caucus announced Monday that the group would oppose the stopgap funding measure needed to avert a partial government shutdown next month, unless it includes conservatives' policy priorities relating to overall spending levels, the border, the Justice Department, and the military. You probably forgot about this, but it's coming soon. They're going to have to get together and decide on some budget things, the Republicans and the Democrats, to avoid the government being shut down. Now, a lot of people mix this up with what we dealt with before with regards to the debt limit. It's vastly different. If the debt limit had not been raised, we would have been in default in all our loans, and that would have been devastating to this country. Now, government shutdowns we've seen before. We've seen them before, and we've gotten through them, but they are just as problematic as anything. And when they were dealing it with a couple months ago or a few months ago, they put it out to September to finalize it and to extend it fully for a year or whatever, 2 years or whatever it is. And now they're going to go head to head again. And of course, the Republicans are going to try to pull the same shit. And of course, they are going to fail. They always fucking fail. The caucus's position highlights the obstacles that Speaker Kevin McCarthy faces next month, with just a dozen legislative days after lawmakers return to Washington until the end of the fiscal year on September 30th. Remember, they're on vacation now. They got a 6 or 8 week vacation for the summer. It's good to be them, isn't it? Now, any controversial add-ons risk losing support from all or almost all Democrats and even some GOP moderates if all Democrats are present and voting no. McCarthy won't be able to lose more than 4 votes on his side. Now, in its statement Monday, the Freedom Caucus said that supporting a clean continuing resolution, which typically extends the prior fiscal year's funding rate, would be an affirmation of the current fiscal 2023 spending level, grossly increased by the lame duck December 2022 omnibus spending bill that we all vehemently opposed just 7 months ago. Now, the group vowed to oppose any spending bill that does not include does not address the unprecedented weaponization of the Justice Department and the FBI that the group says has targeted political opponents and end the left's cancerous woke policies on the Pentagon. This kind of goes back to Tommy Tuberville too, with his blocking all the monies to the military. And they're going to play this. The Republicans are going to play the same game they played with the debt limit raising. Again, they're going to lose. They're always going to lose, but they're going to fuck around and drag it out to the last minute, like I told you they would with the debt ceiling limit. They're going to do it with this one too, and we're going to get close to having the country or the government shut down. In fact, it may get shut down, which is really kind of ignorant when you think about it, because when the government gets shut down, there's always somebody that needs to be blamed. And the only people that can be blamed in this situation are the Republicans. So as much as the Freedom Caucus wants to do these things, the rest of the Republican Party do not, because they know it's going to hurt them come the 2024 election. But we know the MAGA fucks, the Freedom Caucus, they don't care. They want to burn everything down, including their own party. And they're willing to put this country at risk to do it. So we're going to go through some shit again, like we did during the debt ceiling limit raising. It won't be quite as tenuous as what we were doing with the debt ceiling, but it's going to be problematic, no question. Now, there was a border bill that passed on a 219 to 213 vote, with 2 Republicans voting against it, California's John Duarte and Kentucky's Thomas Massie. Massie and Duarte each opposed the legislation over language that would require all employers to electronically verify that new hires can work legally in the U.S. See, that's the problem we have with the Republicans. They can't agree on anything. This is why the Republicans are so weak. They aren't a unified party. They're split up in 2, maybe 3 parts. And when that happens, they can get nothing done. And as we've seen since they've taken power in the House, they've gotten nothing done. Now, the Freedom Caucus statement regarding Pentagon policies may be a nod to language the GOP-controlled Appropriations Committee added to its fiscal 2024 defense spending bill, which panel Democrats opposed. Such riders include prohibitions on funding to implement the department's diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility strategy, and associated Biden administration executive orders to perform surgical procedures or hormone therapies for gender-affirming care, or to promote, host, facilitate, or support events that violate the Department of Defense joint ethics regulation or bring discredit upon the military, such as drag queen story hour for children or the use of drag queens as military recruiters. This really sticks in the craws of the Republicans. They are so afraid of the LGBTQ community that it's absolutely fucking ridiculous. Now, before the August recess, dissent from the House Freedom Caucus played a role in McCarthy's inability to pass the agricultural appropriations bill. The House did pass its military construction VA bill, the only one of the 12 appropriation bills to pass the chamber thus far. Now, the caucus wants fiscal 2024 appropriations bills at the fiscal 2022 top line level of $1.47 trillion. So they want no raise, actually a reduction, because there was a raise from 2022 to 2023. Now they want to go back to 2022. How that makes sense, I don't know. I have no idea. The Freedom Caucus said Monday that it opposes short-term funding extensions to set up December deadline and force the passage of an omnibus. See, that's what typically happens when they're at loggerheads and they can't come to a deal in September. Then they will push it off and they'll say, okay, we'll fund this little bit amount and get us through December. And then they'll have to go back and start over from what they were doing in September. It's a sad state of affairs that we hire these people, we elect them and we hire them to do our work. And then when it comes to actually getting down to doing the work, they find every way they can possibly find to not do the work. Therein lies the big problem in our country. We have people that represent us that don't understand their jobs, or they're unwilling to do their jobs. And when it comes down to it in September, we're either going to have a government shutdown, or they'll come up with some kind of short-term things just to put it off a couple of months. That's what's going to happen. That's typically what happens. Now, McCarthy told his conference during an August 14th conference call that while a continuing resolution will be necessary in September, he also opposes short-term extensions up until the late December holiday recess. So what McCarthy's saying, well, we're not going to do it until December, but maybe we'll do it till November. And let's be honest, we're at the end of September when this all takes place. So you've got all of October, all of November, and then part of December if they take it to the goal line there and wait to the last minute, as they're known to do. This is what they always do. I don't even know why it's a surprise. It's always the case. And it's not just the Republicans. In this case, it's mostly the Republicans. But Democrats have done it too. They love to put things off. They love to create drama. They love to make it a big show. And we, as the people of this country, are always left hanging in the balance, sitting here anxiety-ridden, worried about the worst is going to happen. And then all of a sudden, they pull it out and they get it passed, or at least they extend it. I'm just telling you, that's how it's going to go. It's always gone that way, and it's not going to change now. Now, one of the lawyers, Donald Trump's lawyers, that got an indictment and charges from Fani Willis, Jenna Ellis. Now, you remember seeing Jenna Ellis on TV all the time. She's this younger, attractive lawyer, and that's why she got the job, not because she knows what the fuck she's doing, because clearly she doesn't know what the fuck she's doing. But now she's a little concerned. Jenna Ellis is one of the 18 co-defendants in the former president's Georgia 2020 election interference trial. She yesterday publicly questioned Monday why the super PAC MAGA Inc. is not paying for her defense. Well, that's a good question, because Donald Trump is paying for the defense for a lot of folks, but why not Jenna Ellis? Well, apparently, Jenna, he doesn't see you as a threat, or he doesn't see you as a valuable asset. He's doing exactly what we told you he'd do, and you wouldn't listen. He's going to leave you twisting in the wind because he doesn't need you, or at least he doesn't think he needs you at this point. What you may want to do, Jenna, is start spilling some shit about your former boss, maybe flipping on your former boss. Then I bet you he comes out of his pockets with some money. Jenna Ellis said, I was reliably informed Trump isn't funding any of us who are indicted, Ellis wrote in a post on Twitter or X. Would this change if he becomes the nominee? Why then, not now? I totally agree this has become a bigger principle than just one man, so why isn't MAGA Inc. funding everyone's defense? Ellis was responding to a separate post from Matt Schlapp, the chairman of the American Conservative Union, who wrote, the sooner we unify behind a nominee, that sooner we can use recourses to fund the defense of everyone indicted for being a Trump Republican. So you know what Matt Schlapp is saying, and Matt's got his own problems. Remember, he was accused of groping some male assistant, and this is who is regularly calling Democrats pedophiles and groomers and all that sort of thing, when in fact that's what he is. And he's a sexual assaulter. He's a sexual predator. But what he's saying here is, you all got to get behind Donald Trump. You got to talk the talk and walk the walk, and you got to lie if necessary. And then maybe we will pay for your legal fees. But Jenna, I'm going to tell you something. That's an old trick. They get you to do what they want you to do, and then they still don't pay your bills. Jenna, you're a big girl. You're a lawyer. You thought you knew it all when you were working for Donald Trump, and now you find yourself in a bit of a fix. Dare I say you fucked around and found out, and I'm afraid I don't feel sorry for you. The fact that Donald Trump threw you under the bus and leaves you broke, not a surprise at all, and it shouldn't have been a surprise to Jenna Ellis either. She faces 2 charges in Georgia over her part in former President Trump's effort to overturn the 2020 election, racketeering, which every defendant in the case is charged with, and socializing a public officer to violate their oath in connection with their attendance at December 3rd Georgia Senate Judiciary Subcommittee hearing. Now, earlier this year, she admitted in court to making false statements about the 2020 presidential election, leading a judge to issue a public censure, which ain't no thing. It's a slap on the wrist. Now, Byron Lee, Colorado's presiding disciplinary judge, wrote this in an opinion. The parties agree that the respondent, through her conduct, undermined the American public's confidence in the presidential election, violating her duty of candor to the public. So, Jenna, you're clearly guilty of some crimes. And if your goal is to make us feel sorry because Donald Trump isn't paying your bills, I would just say this: you're a fucking criminal. You deserve to be held accountable. And if you were stupid enough to believe Donald Trump would take care of you, well, then you deserve what you get. Now, the press reached out to MAGA Incorporated for comment and didn't say much. Trump, who is seeking to return to the White House next year, of course, is making headlines using his campaign funds to pay his mounting legal fees. And that may be part of the problem, too. How is he going to pay for Jenna Ellis's fees when he's already sucked up $40 million in the first 6 months of this year and will probably suck up that much and more before this year is over? And keep in mind, he's taking this money, stealing from Peter to pay Paul. He's taking his campaign money, the money he collected from the people that follow him, saying that he was going to use the money to campaign and win the presidential election in 2024. Instead, he's siphoning that shit off and he's using it to pay his legal fees. And why? Well, because the motherfucker has no money. He claims to be a billionaire. And if that were the case, this wouldn't pose a problem. But it poses all kinds of big problems for Donald Trump. So Jenna's shit out of luck. Now, according to campaign finance filings published at the end of last month, Trump's joint fundraising committee reported raising nearly $54 million the first half of 2023. The filings also show Trump's political committee spent roughly $40 million on legal fees in the same period. You can see how long that's going to last. If he spent $40 million already, he's going to spend that much at least over the next 6 months. And that puts him in the red. Now he's going to try to grift more money. He's going to use the indictment in Georgia and his arraignment to try to grift more money. But what he's finding out is that the money is not coming as quickly as it once did. It's coming a little slower. These people that have paid him and paid him and paid him are now starting to run out of money, or at least run out of trust in their Lord and Savior. They keep spending this money, but they get nothing in return. Donald Trump hasn't been put back in office. He's only paying his legal fees. They're counting on him to be the candidate going into the 2024 election. Unfortunately, he's got no money to further that effort. Donald Trump is a sinking ship. I've said all along, when you have a personality like Donald Trump, what happens is it goes along pretty well for a while, but then you can't juggle everything. You get hit from all sides. You can't protect yourself. Your old strategies don't work. and then you start to spiral out of control. And that is where he is now. The only next thing that can happen is that he crashes and burns. And that is what's going to happen to Donald Trump. And all the people that thought he was going to help them, they're going to spiral out of control and crash and burn too. I'm sorry to tell you this, Jenna, but you're fucking done in this business. No one's going to want to touch you, and chances are you'll probably go to jail. And in addition, be so deeply in debt you'll never get out from it. Now, some people might feel bad for you. I don't. You had the choice to either do what's right or what's wrong. You chose to do what was wrong and what was damaging to this country. So now you have to deal with the consequences. It's unfortunate, but you had your chances to step away. I've said this about a lot of folks. They probably should have stepped away from Donald Trump 2 years ago, and they might have been able to save their careers. The ones that stuck by his side up until recently or still by his side, it's too late for you people. The stink of Donald Trump will remain on you for the rest of your natural life, and that stink will not afford you much in the way of jobs in your chosen field, government. Nobody's going to want to touch you with a 10-foot fucking pole. And Jenna, you can whine about the money you're not getting from Donald Trump, but nobody fucking cares. Because when you were on television telling us lies, you were smirking at us like you thought we were dumb. Well, we weren't dumb. And you're going to fucking prison. So c'est la vie, motherfucker. I don't care about you. I don't care about Rudy Giuliani, Mark Meadows, or any of these motherfuckers. You're getting what you deserve. And that's what will heal this country. When accountability is handed out to the people that deserve it. Donald Trump on down. And Jenna, you're among that list. And we can't wait till you're held accountable. All right, we're going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.